Welcome to Hidden History, Stories from the Secret City. I'm Keith McDaniel, along with my co-host, Ray Smith. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Keith. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Excellent.
Let's just get right into it. Why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, we've got someone on here that we've had here before, Katatra Vasquez, and I'm glad to have her on because she has just about to launch another book. How many have you written now, Katatra?
Oh, let's see, Ray. This will actually be my third book.
Or-
Yes.
And what are the other two? Can you get those for me?
Yeah, so absolutely. The first book is called Atomic Hope, Our Words and Our Spaces, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It is a travel guide that I launched in 2020. Probably not a good time to launch a travel guide. Not a good time.
I hear you.
Nevertheless, nevertheless, that was my first book. But I'm happy to say, as time moved on, I did an update to that book, and the second edition is now out, which I'm excited about because, of course, some things have changed since 2020. So that I did that update, and the second edition, again, the second edition is out, and it's at AMZ. I'm excited about that, and it's online. And then the second book is Josie's Hope: A Secret City Revealed, and it is a graphic novel. So those are my two. And then of course now I've come out with making a Little Red Wagon. And of course, all these books are children's books about our unique Oak Ridge secret city.
Good. Thank you for that. That kind of puts it in perspective for us. We talked about your first book, I believe, when you were on before, but now you've got a new children's book. Uh, Keith, can we look at that book? Do you have
Sure,
it? You could pull it up so the
sure.
folks can see what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And we'll let Katatra introduce it to us.
All right.
There you go.
There we go.
There it is.
Absolutely love the power of technology.
Oh, don't we now? That's great. All right. Can a little red wagon change the world?
Absolutely. And I'll just jump right in just to talk to you just a little bit about the book
Please.
and where did this idea come from, right? Where did this creative idea to draft or write a book called Making a Little Red Wagon? So first, let me back up and just say thank you, Ray and Keith, for having me here. Again, yes, the first time was in 2020, but again, the world changed. It kind of flipped upside down and all around again, but that's totally okay. We are here today to talk about it. We live to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so, nevertheless, this book comes from, I was reading, one of the things I like to do is read about Oak Ridge and atomic era history. And I love to listen to oral histories as well. But one day I just so happened to be flipping through the internet and going over some of your historically speaking interviews and your newspaper articles. And so I ran across this historically speaking article with Miss that you did with Miss Jane Puckett Greer. You remember that one?
I do. Yeah. Jane, let's talk a little about Jane. Just 'cause you brought her up. Jane Greer, Puckett was her. Oh, have I got it wrong? Jane Greer Puckett or Jane Puckett Greer?
I'm not really sure,
I'm not
but
either.
I
At
think it's
any rate, she has the distinction of having gone to the University of Tennessee and tried to get an engineering degree, and, and they refused to give her an engineering degree. They told her she could take all the courses that they had any way she wanted to, but they would not grant her an engineering degree because she was a woman. Now, they did give her a degree in statistics. And then she came and worked at the Manhattan Project. She worked in building 9731. And she was, one day, she was making her statistics on this calculator. And this person walked up behind her and looked over her shoulder. And she glanced up to see who it was, didn't recognize, just saw it was an Army officer. And later she saw a picture of General Groves and realized that it was him who was looking over her shoulder.
Wow.
And then she came back to Oak Ridge and, oh, I don't know, Keith, it was around 2006, sometime when we were finishing the movie you made, but
Right.
we put her in 9731 for one of the Secret City festivals and had her welcome people as they came through, and she could point to the calculator that was there and say that was the type of calculator that she used during the Manhattan Project. So that's great to know that she was the source of your inspiration for the book, Making a Little Red Wagon.
Absolutely. And thank you for telling me a little bit more about her story. Now, that part wasn't in the historically speaking article. So I'm glad we have this recorded so
Yeah.
we can learn more about Miss
And
Jane
her
Greer.
name was Jane Greer Puckett. I remember
Jane
it now.
Greer Puckett.
And her
Yes.
daughter would be very upset with me if I didn't get her name just exactly right. And she'd
Well,
tell me about it too.
well, absolutely. Well, we got it right, I believe.
Yeah,
We
I
got
do
it
too.
right. And
Mm.
so thank you so much for telling me a little bit more about her story. And it also makes me feel really, really as a woman that is in the STEM field to know a little bit more about her story. But I think Miss
One
Jane,
more, just
go
one
ahead, I'm
more
sorry.
comment on her before we leave. They did publish an article in I think it's called The Torch, that UT publishes, and they had her being recognized as coming to University of Tennessee, and also they recognized her for her career in sports.
Oh,
And Peyton Manning actually gave her an award for her work in amateur sports over the years.
Mm.
So that was good to see her get recognized by UT. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry
no,
for
that
taking
is
it off.
awesome. We definitely recognize her and give her flowers. She's an amazing woman. But one thing I liked about Miss Jane's story is that she's also creative.
Yeah.
I'm a scientist who's also has a creative mind as well. We'll just say that. And so I was reading your article about her and her work and her recollections of what she did here during the Manhattan Project era. And so, of course, curious minds from all around want to know, what are they doing over there in Oak Ridge? We see all these lights, we see all these people coming in, like, what is going on? So Jane, in her imagination and just a beautiful way of putting it, to just kind of tell people, we got this, but let me tell you what you're doing, but not really. She said she would tell them that we are over here making little red wagons. She said we're over here making little red wagons. And in the article, she also said that during the holiday time, she would give people, her friends and family that were curious, she would give them little red wagons.
Oh, how neat. Oh, that is so neat, the story. I'm glad to hear that connection.
Yeah, and so based on my other books, my Atomic Hope, Our Words and Our Spaces is a cultural tourism travel guide, and it gears to ages, let's say, like seventh grade, or I will go a little bit earlier, like fifth to like eighth grade. Well, in that range, because there are STEM activities involved as they go to these different places, right? And
Okay.
then Josie's Hope is a graphic novel. My daughter at the time, she was like 8 or 9, and she was like, Mom, in order to tell kids about Oak Ridge history, you got to write a graphic novel. And that's what I did, right?
Good for her.
However, when I would go into schools to speak about our unique Oak Ridge history and bringing in those concepts of the history that we have here, when the assemblies would happen, right? The
Mhm.
little ones didn't get to go to the assembly, right? These subjects they weren't necessarily that advanced, because even though I tried not to mention the word atomic bomb in any of these subjects. However, there was always one child that was like, okay, so Miss Cat, you talking about the atomic bomb? I said, we're unleashing atomic energy. Right. And so here we are. And I was like, okay, Katatra, what can I do to introduce this unique history and the everyday Americans that came together to in under this cloth of secrecy, etc., to connect the little ones to this story, right? And so this article came along in my research, and I was like, light bulb, we're making little red wagons.
What a neat idea. That is such a great connection. Miss Jane would love it.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
I
You know,
have to give her that accreditation for just leading me to use my imagination to help explain what we did here to children. And it's in a way that, of course, no, we don't, talk about unleashing atomic energy. However, we bring the concepts of science, technology, engineering, and math. We bring, or STEM, as some people call it. We bring in making history accessible to little ones because the story is rhyming and it's fun. And then at the end, Hard Hat Hal is a main character, and Atomic Genius Jesse are main characters. And I have to pause for a second just to give you a little bit of background about those two main characters, because those two main characters are based off of people who actually made historical inroads in the Manhattan Project here in Oak Ridge. And although one didn't get to come to Oak Ridge, his work followed him. So Atomic Genius Jesse is based off of Ernest Jesse Wilkins, which is a scientist that was in Chicago, an African-American scientist that was in Chicago. And although he couldn't come here because he was African-American, his science came here. And so that, because we need to give some girl energy, and of course there are African-American women scientists that worked on the Manhattan Project, Jesse is based off of Ernest Wilkins, but we made Jesse a girl for this particular story. And then we have Hard Hat Hal, and Hard Hat Hal is based off of Hal Williams, who laid the first concrete at the K-25 uranium enrichment plant. So those are the two characters in this story. But nevertheless, we bring all this, the adventure and the diversity and STEM and all those concepts, and we introduce them in a fun way for children, little young readers. So this could be used as a rhyming nursery rhyme right before you go to bed, or for the kindergartners and first graders to take the adventure as well. And it's interactive. Of course, all my stories are interactive. So that is the gist. It brings all that together. And the main theme of it is we are different, but united we stand. So all these different aspects of people's contributions come in. The scientist, the construction laborer, or now we will call him a construction engineer, although they are different, those skills came together, and out of that they made something incredible in a short period of time. And people were wondering what they were doing, but they made this Little Red Wagon that changed the world. So bringing all those concepts together, that is making a Little Red Wagon, and that is the unique story of our Oak Ridge history in a way that children can understand. I talk a lot, sorry.
Oh, no, you did good. You explained it really well. And I recognize where Hal came from, but the Jessie, that one gave me a spin because you made her into a girl, and that's okay.
Girl power. We gotta have girl power. And there are some amazing women who are scientists that are women. And I was going to call her Carolyn because we have Carolyn Beatrice Parker, who was a African American scientist during the Manhattan Project. But I kind of like my creative mind went, and I kind of like the name Jessie a little bit.
Sure.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
Keith, you were going to say something a little bit.
I was just going to say, when we were talking a while ago, when you talked about, she said that they were making little red wagons, it kind of reminded me of back when I was doing my work in Oak Ridge, my interviews, and I remember Colleen Black. When I interviewed Colleen a few times, and one of the times she said people would ask us what we're making out there. They say, "What are you making out there?" And she said, "About $1.15 an hour." You know, so that was pretty much it. They had that, but I like the Little Red Wagon.
I do too. I think that's a neat connection, and for Katatra to pick up on it as she had, I think it would just be delightful to Jane to know that. So.
Yeah, and I think you're telling the story to a demographic that has not been reached out to before. I think that's one of the great things, because you're right. The Atomic story, the Oak Ridge story, is a complicated and sometimes messy history, and controversial history, that really doesn't start being told until someone's at least in middle school or maybe even in high school, and adults. And this is a way to communicate working together and patriotism and accomplishing things and diversity at a very young age. I think that's an interesting perspective to have for that age group. So I'm excited to read it.
Absolutely. And so, reflecting on where we are in America, at the end of the day, there was a time in history where it may have been complicated and messy, right? However, at the end of the day, we were, how can I say it? We were united, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, there was a mission. And in this case, there was a big scientific experiment that happened to turn out right, that a lot of hands were in, right? Sure. From the laborer to the scientist to anyone, to those people who came, and they were doing their patriotic American duty at that time. Yeah. And they came together as Americans, and they literally changed the world with this Little Red Wagon. They literally did. And so I'd rather teach my children about a time in American history where, yeah, it was complicated. However, at the end of the day, guess what? There are a lot of people, everyday American heroes, that got together and brought their skills and their talents different. We may have all been in our skills, our talents, what we look like, etc. But we came together and we did something that literally changed the trajectory of the world. And that is a story of collaboration. It's a story of teamwork. It's a story of diversity. It's a story of bringing different skill sets together in order to do something together that was, like I said, magnificent and literally changed the world. And it did. Yeah, and it did. Regardless of whether it was a atomic bomb or what have you. This was a space in history, right? Where Americans came together and did something incredible to save thousands of lives. And that's what making a Little Red Wagon is about. And it's an Oak Ridge story, absolutely. However, this can be sent to a child in Arizona or anywhere in the United States where this particular story will resonate and teach those this particular lesson, that different we are, but united we stand.
I suppose every child can identify with Little Red Wagon. And
I believe so.
That's such a unique concept. And you're right. When you stop and look at the history of the world, you'll have to admit that World War II brought together a large contingent of folks. I mean, we think about the history of Oak Ridge and all the people that came here and worked together and making Little Red Wagon, but that was not just unique to Oak Ridge, the entire nation, even Canada, even Great Britain. We were all working together on this goal to end this awful war. And that may be the only time in history that that large amount of people have pulled together for one common goal. And I think there's a huge amount of lessons to be learned from that. And obviously it's current. I mean, we need that lesson now as much as ever, that working together we can accomplish great things. And I agree with you, this thing that happened making the Little Red Wagons literally did change the world, and introduced everything from nuclear energy, nuclear reactors, nuclear medicine.
Mhm.
And even now, you know, in Oak Ridge, there's a renaissance of nuclear that's coming our way. And
Absolutely.
again, it will call for us to bring talents together, different skill sets, different people from around the world. I mean, come on, we've even got a French company that's locating here in Oak Ridge now. So it's going to be an interesting time and another opportunity to make Little Red Wagons.
You know, when
Absolutely.
I excuse me,
Absolutely. And I wanted to actually, again, put this point in here with Hard Hat Hal and Atomic Genius Jesse. So I'm a scientist. My husband is a master technician at the Spallation Neutron Source, and he manages all different types of craft people. And for that particular, the Spallation Neutron Source, and many of the things that you mentioned earlier, in order for that to work and be successful, it takes all different types of skills. And to introduce the collaboration that one skill is not necessarily more important than the other. It teaches children especially to celebrate each other's differences and how each skill set comes together and accomplishes or leads to success, whether it's the laborer or the scientist has to depend on the engineer in order to build the neutron beams and so forth, right. So this is a story of collaboration, and not one particular career is more important than the other. This is a story about how we all come together and merge to create something great, or science or technology or art, right. You need different things to get to make. And going back to Keith, we were talking about your film festival. I'm sure there are different pieces that come together before you have the finished product that we all go out to see, right. And
Sure.
all of those pieces come together, and if one is not necessarily more important than the other. And you can look at that through the racial lens, you can look at that through skill sets, but that's the message that I would hope that people come out of with making a Little Red Wagon.
you know, I talk to, you know, I show Secret City to my high school students, and I talk to them about it, and I don't know, you know, everybody's got an opinion about technology, but I truly believe that AI is going to change everything, and I tell them that the Manhattan Project was the AI of that generation. Okay, it
Yeah.
changed everything. It changed our entire future. The things that came out of the Manhattan Project changed everything in the way that we live, in the way that we see the world, and the way that technology has developed. So I tell them that, you know, to give them a comparison, because they're very familiar with AI right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that are taking place with AI. So that's how I try to relate to them, that, you know, how important that time was.
I think that's interesting, Keith, because I know that at the Oak Ridge High School, I attended and participated in a forum that they had where they were looking at the Manhattan Project for lessons learned on how to implement artificial intelligence,
Wow.
how to pick out the good, how to hold back on the bad, and
Yeah.
to make the best out of this new emerging technology, how to use it and utilize it for the best. So I think that's a great comparison between the Manhattan Project era and what we're facing now with artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you just never, I always tell somebody, you better know something about your history because you don't know the history that we have. Some people are like, oh, well, we have to take history in school, boo, whatever, it's boring, yada, yada, yada. However, just like you mentioned, Keith, the connection between AI that's right now and 1940 and catching those lessons, yeah, how that propelled them to an understanding and lessons learned that they need to understand, not only understand, but move forward and make that technology even better and better and better.
Right.
So, yeah, you better learn something about your history. It's not just something we just put up on the shelf.
And yeah,
Right?
you're
And
right.
imagine introducing those type of that history through an engaging way to little young readers and how that will propel them forward into their future.
It's yeah, you're absolutely right. And when you're and you have to do that is you have to compare what young people are relating to today to be able to use history. And one of the interesting things that came from this podcast is Ray, and you can tell me, I can't remember the person's name, but a couple of years ago we had someone that talked about the computers at Los Alamos, the
Yes.
the people that they called computers, and the
Mhm.
first IBM computer that was at Los Alamos. Well, I gave a copy of that, or I gave a link of that to our computer technology teacher at the high school, and they use it in their class to teach about the beginning of computer usage for scientific work. And so they're able to, because they're studying computer technology, they're able to look back on the history and see how it kind of started, on in big ways. So and to use in a big way. So anyway.
Yeah, I remember that, and I wish I could think of his name.
Yeah.
Nick comes to mind, but I can't get the rest of his name. Alan Carr introduced us
Right.
to him, and he talked about the women that
Yeah.
were working at Los Alamos
Mm-hmm.
on the computers.
And they call them computers. That's what
Yeah, they actually called them computers.
Yeah, and we can't forget about that movie Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
Remember that movie? We're moving forward in a little bit in the 1950s, 60s time period, but there were a lot of African American women called computers, right?
Absolutely.
That contributed to that science as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit now. You're writing books, but you're also my understanding is you run an organization or a company.
Well, talk a little bit about it. So, again, I moved here about now it's been 5 years ago. When I say here, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and I've absolutely fallen in love with this city. And not only have I absolutely fallen in love with this city, combining my scientific brain, I am an environmental scientist, in addition to my love of history and tourism and we'll call it the mouth of the South kind of thing. And telling people about all of this great history and this unique secret city. I have formed a company called Atomic Hope. Heritage Preservation and Tourism Company. And with that, of course, I have the book hardcover just came in. Of course, we create books, however, as educational resources. However, we have and conduct tours, as well as participate in historic preservation activities within the city of Oak Ridge. And so I'm really excited. The last tour, the Scarborough 85, that most of you are familiar with, they had their anniversary in September. And so someone reached out to me and asked me would I curate a special tour in memory and memorial of the Scarborough 85, and I did. And we had a tour bus full of folks, and we called it Hope's Classroom, and we connected the children of the Manhattan Project story to the Scarborough 85 story in our journey to integration, and that was really, really fun. So that's just one of the things that my company does as far as tourism is concerned. And I have to say, Keith and Ray, I just came back from New Orleans, and I had fun going to the World War II Museum. That brought a lot of things into perspective. And as I digress, I took a picture with, they had an exhibit rather about the people and the lives of the people during that time in history. And what was there? A little red wagon. And so of course I got a selfie with the little red wagon. But I say all that to say that this particular story is, yes, it's unique to Oak Ridge, but it's part of a larger story. And so with that, the preservation is important, right? And so my work coordinates with different people within Oak Ridge to make sure that we have something that when people do visit here, right, that they can see, that they can put their hands on, that they can actually walk to, that tells the story of Oak Ridge. And my particular, what I am particularly interested in is, as an author, of course, giving main character energy to people, specifically African Americans at this particular time, that have been overlooked or overshadowed. And so many of my tours, my educational resources will highlight the stories of some ordinary but extraordinary African American people in this city. So yes, with tours, preservation, and educational resources, anybody can visit atomichope.com to learn more about what we do. We have self-guided tours, and you can also reach me, and I will put together and give you a guided tour of some of the magnificent places that we have here in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that tells our story.
So how can people get your books?
Absolutely, absolutely. So right now, Atomic Hope, Our Words and Our Spaces, the second edition is online. You can just type in Atomic Hope, Our Words and Our Spaces, and it will take you to the wonderful Amazon link. However, it is at the American Museum of Science and Energy here locally, as well as in the K-25 History Center. So definitely you can go to Amazon and Google it, and there my book will come up. It's also at other retailers, book retailers as well. Josie's Hope, which I'm really, really proud of Josie's Hope, because it won the Merit Award from the State of Tennessee Historical Commission. I'm really, really proud of that. So that book is also available on Amazon and at the K-25 History Center and the American Museum of Science and Energy. And so everybody wants to know, okay, Katatra, how can we get our hands on your new book? Yay! Well, actually, that book will be released locally. Of course, I wanted to give my local peeps a opportunity to see and celebrate with me. So November the 16th, I will have a book launch at the American Museum of Science and Energy at the Harold O'Connor Laboratory. So we'll have crafts for the kids where they'll be making wagons. right on time for the holidays, where it'll be an ornament. As Jane said, she gave out Little Red Wagons as ornaments. And we'll have a live reading for me, and some other refreshments and so forth. And we'll just have a great time on November 16th. Drop in anytime between 2 to 4 at the American Museum of Science and Energy for the local book launch. And then shortly thereafter, again, it will be on Amazon. Just type in Making a Little Red Wagon. And then you can get the books on Amazon or working on any of the book retailers. And hey, I'll just put a plug in. If there are some local bookstores, maybe. I'm a creator. I'm not a great publicist, okay?
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that. I'd say you're doing pretty good. And I want to tell you that I'm going to try my best to connect you with Beverly Puckett. Beverly Puckett is Jane Greer Puckett's daughter. And I think if I tell her about making the Little Red Wagon, she will get really excited about the connection to her mom. So I won't make any promises to you, but I will help you make that connection if I can't
Do.
call. And I think she'll be excited. And wouldn't it be delightful to have her here for your book launch?
Wouldn't it be delightful?
Just
Actually, you know what? And if not, guess what? One thing about I'm learning as I overcreate, we'll say that overcreate, that being an author is one of those lifetime commitments, right? And so there will be other opportunities. There's so much going on in my head about bringing these characters to life, about telling our Oak Ridge story. That I am sure there will be some other opportunities that I will create or come up in my head that we can execute, so she can be there and we can highlight her, and we can have a wagon and so forth to highlight her mom and the inspiration that she gave me to making a Little Red Wagon.
Well, we'll do that. And Keith, I've thought of his name. Nick Lewis is who did that presentation with us he did that for at Alan Carr's request. Did it for us here, and he also joined me on an Oracle class. Mm-hmm. So I want to recognize Nick Lewis as being the person you were talking about earlier.
All right. Well, very good. Well, Katatra, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
We do.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate you. You all didn't have to have me a second time. And again, the first time you all had me was during 2020, right? And again, that cultural travel activity guide probably wasn't a great time to launch that. So I really appreciate you all having me back the second time to talk about my new book and all the things that I'm working on. And if people want to follow me, atomichope.com. Tours, we are working really, really hard to tell our Oak Ridge story, and that I'm really proud of. And I just want to thank you, Keith, and thank you, Ray, for actually giving us something, this different generation, something to actually look back on to seek inspiration from. Because if you all didn't do that, I would have never known about Miss Jane, and I would have never known, and I would never actually put that connection together to be able to educate young readers about what we did here in our amazingly unique Oak Ridge, Tennessee secret city.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ray. Next week we've got another.
Oh yes, we do. We've got Talia Ambrose, who's going to be our guest next week. She is daughter of Stephen Ambrose, and they have a tour a Manhattan Project tour. And I met them when they came through Oak Ridge, and met her at that time. And they go to all the Manhattan Project sites as a part of that tour. And we're going to have her on to talk about the tours that they've got planned upcoming, and tell us about the organization that is the legacy of the great author Stephen Ambrose.
All right, very good. I won't be with you next week. You'll be doing that one on your own. I'll be in Knoxville at the premiere of a film that I acted in at the Film Fest Knox. So I'm excited.
And tell the folks how they can get to see that if they want to.
Film Fest Knox, of course, folks that know me know that I ran the Knoxville Film Festival for 19 years, and I kind of retired it a couple of years ago. And not long after that, my good friend Kurt Willis, who is the film office director for Visit Knoxville, his job is to recruit films to come to Knoxville to make feature-length movies, and he's been very successful doing that over the last few years. Well, he reached out to me and said, we want to pick up the torch and we want to start a new film festival. And I think he was just giving me I don't know if he needed my blessing, but he was kind enough to ask for it.
Yeah.
And I said, of course. And I said, if anybody's going to do it, that you all are the perfect people to do that. So they created this new film festival called Film Fest Knox. And they had it last year. It's at Regal Riviera, which is on Gay Street in downtown Knoxville. And it's a typical film festival. They bring in films from all over the country. But one of the things that they do is where I had a couple of competitions, they have a competition called the elevator pitch. And basically what you do is you make an 8-minute short film that possibly could be turned into a feature-length film, hour and a half or 2-hour feature-length film. And they take all the folks that do that and they pick the top 8. And then they have a special screening, and that screening will be Thursday night, the 14th, at 7 o'clock at Film Fest Knox, of the top 8 films. And after the film screen, each of the directors get up and give a 3-minute elevator pitch on how they could turn their film into a feature. And the judges decide and announce by the end of the weekend, who wins. And if you win, you get like a year of mentorship, and there's a whole group of professionals from all over the country that you work with. They teach you, how to raise money for your film, how to do this, how to do all this kind of stuff. So anyway, a friend of mine that I've known for a long time who participated in my film festival asked me to be in one of the films, so his film. So I'm in that film. And so that's what Film Fest Knox is about. So
what's the title of your 8-minute?
The short title is Episodes. The long title is The Unexplained Episodes of Frank Holloway, and I play Frank Holloway. If people want to see a poster, the poster is available now. For it, they can just go to my Facebook page. I've got it posted there on my Facebook page. But the poster, it's a very dramatic film. Like I said, it's 8 minutes long, so it's a short. And we shot one of the days we had to use a house, and Ray was kind enough to let us use his house. And the director said, "This is perfect. This house is absolutely perfect for what we needed for." And and then the other day, I'll just say this. I stood out in the rain on the railroad track in Dillis in my bathrobe. So
oh, wow.
That's part of the film, and that's the picture for the poster.
Wait just a minute, Keith. This is too good to pass up.
Oh, yeah, we got to see it, Ray. You got it?
Yeah, wait just a minute. Let me figure out how to get it up.
You want me to do it, Ray?
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
You taught me enough today that I can do it, I believe.
Okay.
Let's see what happens here. Get rid of that.
Oh, wow.
Double click on that probably, and you'll be fine.
I don't know how to make it any bigger, but that's good enough. People can see you standing on the railroad track.
Yeah, it says sometimes you see more than you're meant to see. That's
what it says. Sometimes, yeah.
So anyway, that's
all right.
That's the poster for the film, and that's the one.
That's awesome.
Oh man. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that film and seeing my house in it.
Your house is I'm in your bed, not your bed, but I'm in a bed and in the kitchen and so.
Well, good.
All right. Well, thank you all so much, and Katatra, again, thank you so much for being with us.
Do appreciate you being with us, and I'm really glad for the book you've published. So
absolutely
good.
And folks,
Thank you so much.
and folks, we'll see you. Ray will see you next week.
Next week. Yep.
All right. Thanks.
All right.